Their crimes so cruel, so unfathomably personal, that they stain not only the memory of those involved, but also the places where they occurred. Crofton Cemetery in Stubbington, Hampshire, is one such place. Tall, whispering trees line its quiet walkways. The wind sweeps over rows of headstones like a slow sigh. Families arrive with flowers. Children tug at their parent hands. There's nothing unusual here. Nothing to suggest that this peaceful ground once became the stage for one of the most chilling murders in modern British history. On a summer morning in July 2023, a 71-year-old grandmother named Blackwood walked into that cemetery to honor her son's birthday. Instead, she walked into an ambush orchestrated by the man she had once married, Martin Suter, 68 years old, her ex-husband, carrying a blade and a plan fueled by 2 decades of bitterness. This is a story of obsession, grief, revenge, and the evil that grew silently in a man who refused to let go of the past. To understand how a visit to a child's grave ended in murder, we need to go back to the year 2003, when Anna Martin's teenage son, just 15, died in a tragic accident. The loss was devastating. For any parent, burying a child feels like the world collapsing inward, crushing everything: love, identity, hope, and even faith. But while grief often brings families together, it can also tear them apart. For Anna Martin, it did the latter, and suffered deeply but quietly. She turned to community, church, friends, the gentle support systems that help someone keep breathing after their world has fallen apart. Martin, however, turned inward. Grief hardened into resentment, and resentment curdled into blame. Instead of healing, he nursed a private narrative in which and was responsible for their son's death. There was no evidence, no logic, no truth in it. But grief doesn't always listen to reason. By 2004, their marriage had collapsed under the weight of unspoken accusations and emotional distance. The divorce was inevitable, and rebuilt her life one small step at a time. She worked, volunteered, kept close ties with her family, and held on to the memory of her son with love, not anger. Martin rebuilt nothing. He fed his bitterness, and that bitterness would one day become a weapon. No one around Martin fully grasped how twisted his feelings about and had become. Outwardly, he was calm, even polite. But beneath that calmness, years of fixation had been fermenting. He stopped speaking with Anne, stopped speaking about their son with any softness, stopped participating in society in any meaningful way. Yet, he never stopped thinking about Anne, not with longing, but with rage. When the anniversary of their son's death or birthday approached, Martin's emotions would surge. He obsessed over what he believed she had taken from him. He replayed old arguments, convinced himself of false memories, and shaped a delusion in which it wasn't a bereaved mother, but a villain. It was a dangerous mindset, the kind that grows quietly, like mold in the dark, until one day it takes over completely. Friends who saw him described him as withdrawn, sometimes cold. No one predicted violence, but hindsight painted the picture clearly. This was a man who had been mentally rehearsing a terrible act for years, and by 2023, he had made up his mind. July 24th, 2023, a birthday that never came. It should have been a day of remembrance, a day of sadness, yes, but also of love, and set out on her bicycle toward Crofton Cemetery, as she had done countless times before. She carried flowers. She carried grief. She carried a mother's quiet devotion. She had no idea she was being watched. Earlier that morning, Martin Suter had arrived at the cemetery before dawn. He positioned himself near their son's grave. He waited. 5 hours passed. Visitors came and went. Groundskeepers tended to the grass. Birds hopped between headstones, pecking at the soil. The world moved on as Martin sat in the shadows, clutching a kitchen knife. Stillness can be peaceful, or it can be menacing. Martin's stillness was a latter, the calm before violence. Around midday, Anne arrived. She parked her bicycle, removed her small scissors used for trimming flowers, and walked toward her son's grave, a mother coming to honor her child. Martin emerged from his hiding spot. The attack was swift, brutal, and fueled by years of hatred. He plunged a kitchen knife into her back with such force that the blade snapped. Shattered steel fell to the ground like broken glass and collapsed to her knees, stunned, confused, terrified. She tried to crawl away. She tried to scream. But Martin wasn't finished. He grabbed the scissors and had brought, the same one she used to lovingly prepare flowers for her son, and turned them into a weapon. 19 strikes. Neck, shoulder, face. 19 wounds inflicted on a 71-year-old woman whose last moments were spent at her child's resting place. When authorities arrived and was already gone, her blood flowed into the very soil where her son was buried. There's a cruelty in this world that no fiction writer could invent. This was cruelty in its rawest form. One of the chilling details of this case is Martin's behavior after the murder. There was no frantic escape, no breakdown, no panic. He calmly walked away. Witnesses described him as detached, expressionless, and almost peaceful. When police located him, he didn't argue. He didn't resist. He didn't ask about Anne. He didn't show remorse. He simply acknowledged what he had done. A man who had planned, waited, and executed a killing with icy precision. During questioning, he revisited old accusations against Anne, the same false narrative he had clung to for 20 long years. It was clear that he had nourished this hatred until it all erupted at the graveside. As investigators dug deeper into Martin's past, another disturbing truth resurfaced. Years earlier, he had admitted to a historic offense, the indecent assault of a girl under 14. The court now saw not a grieving father driven to madness, but a man with a long pattern of hidden darkness. The prosecution didn't have to exaggerate. The facts spoke for themselves. This wasn't a moment of insanity. It was a moment of intentional, planned evil. Martin Suter initially pleaded not guilty to murder. He held on to his twisted reasoning like a shield. But on the first day of trial, facing the mountain of evidence, CCTV, eyewitnesses, forensic proof, his own prior confessions, he finally changed his plea to guilty. It wasn't remorse. It was inevitability. The judge's words. Judge Michael Bowes, KC, did not mince words. He called the murder an act of wickedness carried out with chilling deliberation. The courtroom felt heavy as he described the cruelty of waiting at the grave for hours, fully intending to kill a woman who posed no threat and carried no weapon except a pair of gardening scissors. The public gallery wept. Members of Anne's family held hands. Some bowed their heads. Justice was beginning, but closure was still distant. Martin Suter was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum of 27 years and 230 days. Given his age, it is almost certain he will die behind bars. Silence followed the judge's decision. But in that silence, there was a measure of peace, not victory, but relief, and deserves her story told. She was a beloved figure in her community, a retired teachera friend people relied on as sister, who offered wisdom rather than judgment, a mother who never stopped grieving, but never surrendered to bitterness. She raised her children with patience and warmth. Those who knew her spoke of her gentle humor, her resilience, and her quiet compassion. She never remarried, not out of fear, but because her life's focus shifted towards service, family, and healing. She was trying to live with grace. And she died showing that same grace, visiting her son's grave out of love, unaware that evil was waiting. A mother killed at her son's grave was a crime too symbolic, too cruel, too heartbreaking to comprehend. Her brother stood outside court after sentencing and spoke through tears. This was grotesque. No human being deserves to die like that. Her friends, many of them elderly, were terrified. If violence could strike a peaceful cemetery, where was safe? Teachers she worked with described feeling robbed of a colleague, robbed of closure, robbed of someone who had survived tragedy, only to be taken by another. Police officers called the case one of the most disturbing of their careers. And yet, amid the horror, there was unity, a collective refusal to let Anne's memory be defined by her final moments. During sentencing, Anne's family read impact statements that made even hardened court officials shake their heads in disbelief. One said, he couldn't cope with losing his son, but instead of seeking help, he chose to destroy another life. Another said, and carried her grief with dignity. He carried us like poison. The judge listened carefully. The courtroom wept, and when the sentence was finally passed, there was a shared understanding. Justice had been served, and a monster had been caged, and was a woman who believed in forgiveness, compassion, and the quiet strength of faith. Her family drew their comfort not from revenge, but from the assurance that no evil act escapes the eye of God. In the days after the sentencing, her church community gathered for a memorial service. There were candles, soft hymns, gentle sobs echoing in pews, and a passage was read, one that in herself loved during hard times. Romans 12, verse 19. Beloved, never avenge yourselves, but leave it to the wrath of God. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. That verse resonated deeply, because justice in the courtroom was only the beginning. The ultimate justice, the moral justice that transcends earthly rulings, belongs to God alone. Ann's family left the service carrying something they hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Not because the pain was gone, not because the memories were healed, but because they knew Ann's suffering ended the moment her soul left that cold cemetery ground. And as they prayed, another verse was spoken, a promise, really. Psalm 34, verse 18. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. In that moment, they believed it, needed it, and found strength in it. The grave where Ann died has since been visited by countless strangers who leave flowers, crosses, and handwritten notes. Many are mothers. Some are survivors of domestic abuse. Others are simply people touched by the tragedy. One note read, evil did not win here. Love did. Rest in peace. Ann's life is not defined by how she died, but by how she lived. With kindness, resilience, humility, and unwavering devotion. Martin Suter's life will be defined by the cage he built for himself long before he ever stepped into a prison cell. A cage made of hatred, blame, and moral decay. This documentary is not a story of murder. It's a story of love enduring beyond death, justice prevailing beyond fear, and faith offering comfort when nothing else can. As viewers, as storytellers, as human beings, we look at tragedies like this and ask, why? But sometimes the better question is, what do we learn from it? We learn to cherish the living, to forgive before bitterness becomes poison, to seek help when grief overwhelms us, to never underestimate the quiet suffering of others, and to protect the vulnerable from those whose hearts have grown dark. For in Blackwood, justice was served. For her family, closure was found in faith. And for the world, her story stands as a reminder. Violence may break the body, but love outlives everything, even death. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel for more true crime story.